Okay, so good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's webinar entitled How Can You Access Your AVC? My name's Barry Richards. I'm one of the retirement education specialists here at AVC Wise. A bit about my background is I work directly for the Prudential, specialising in all things AVCs. And I've been fortunate enough to see the real difference that educating people on their retirement journey has made to their futures. And I look forward to doing that for all of you here today. Now, if you want to make a note of my email address on the screen there, it's barry.richards@avcwise.co.uk. So anybody who has joined today's webinar using a personal email address like a Gmail or a Hotmail, or if you've come on anonymously as a guest, if you would drop me a quick email at the end of the presentation, just confirming your attendance, I'll make sure that you're copied in to an important email that goes out to everybody with some links on. If you have come on anonymously as a guest or using a personal email address, you don't always receive that email. So if you just want to drop me a quick note at the end confirming your attendance today, I'll make sure you're copied into that. A few things to make you aware of at the start. The content of the webinar is provided for educational purposes, does not constitute financial advice. Information given is based on our current understanding of taxation, legislation and regulations. Any levels and bases of and relief from taxation are subject to change. Tax treatments based on individual circumstances may be subject to change in the future. Fund values can fall as well as rise. Past performance shouldn't be used as a guide to future performance. So firstly today then we're going to look at understanding what is a shared cost AVC and what makes this such a fantastic employee benefit. We'll look at what point you can actually access this pot of money that you've saved up in your AVC. And then importantly, we'll look at how you can choose to take those benefits. And finally, we'll look at how you can then get set up with your AVCs or get these amended if it's something that you're already paying into. So today then we're going to talk a bit about really understanding how that shared cost AVC works, as there are all of these unique features that make it such a fantastic employee benefit. And importantly, we're going to be going into how you can really use this to your advantage. So with a shared cost AVC then, you've got this additional way of saving towards your retirement, and you're essentially building up this extra pot of money for your retirement. So we're going to break this down into two parts, as you'll all be paying into your main local government pension scheme, which is a set percentage you will pay each month, and that percentage you pay will always be based on what your salary is. So we'll talk a bit around how this local government pension works for you. And then you've all got this option of paying into what's called a salary sacrifice shared cost AVC. And then we'll talk a bit around how this works and again, the benefits this brings. So firstly then, your local government pension is almost the Rolls Royce of pensions, as this is going to pay you a guaranteed index linked pension until the day you die. So it can't run out, and being index linked means it's always going to go up with inflation. And this really is one of the best features of that local government pension. Now, also in your retirement, if you were to die, that local government pension doesn't die with you, as there's a survivor's pension, where up to 50% of that pension would then be payable to your spouse, civil or cohabiting partner, or eligible child in certain conditions. So you can see why this pension is so valuable. Now, for anyone that joined here today before 2008 and had service in local government prior to that date, you would have been building up an automatic tax-free cash lump sum for when you retire. Now, many of you here today will have joined after this date, and therefore your automatic entitlement to tax-free cash will be zero, as all the sections that have followed have been focused on building up an annual pension amount for your retirement. So you'll have your annual local government pension at retirement, whatever that amount is in your case. But if you want more tax-free cash at the point of retirement, you can decide to give up £1 of your annual pension income in exchange for £12 of tax-free cash. Which on the face of it sounds like a good deal, but in reality, that's a whole £1,000 of guaranteed pension income per year you're losing for every £12,000 of tax-free cash that you take. Now, if you think about average life expectancy and how long we might all be around in retirement, that might not work out to be such a good deal, because that £1 of pension income that you're giving up is worth so much more. And that's because not only is it guaranteed monthly income paid out every year until you die, but crucially, as we mentioned, it's index linked. So that £1 isn't going to stay at £1, it's going to keep going up and up by whatever the CPI is. So if you leave that £1 of annual pension income alone, in all likelihood, you'll be very glad you've made that decision, as you're now going to have an income that has a degree of index linking attached to it, rather than the quick win of getting £12 upfront of tax-free cash. Now, the only way you could really see commutation to tax-free cash as a good deal is if, unfortunately, you're not going to be around that long in your retirement. So just to summarise this slide, then that local government pension is extremely valuable. So you can see why people will not want to reduce it by taking tax-free cash from it. Now, something else important to consider here is that your normal retirement age from local government is now linked to your state pension age. So for most of you here today, that'll be 66, 67 or 68. Now, for each year early you take your local government pension, you're hit with a reduction of around 5% each year. So for someone whose normal retirement age is 67, which may be the vast majority of you there, well, if you were to go at the age of 62, for example, then you're going to lose almost 20% of your annual pension, which is a massive hit to take. Now, one of the main benefits of a shared cost AVC is the ability to take it all back as a tax-free lump sum. Now, importantly, this doesn't reduce your annual pension, and it can also give you that ability to retire early, as having all of this tax-free cash at the point of retirement can really help with those potential reductions on your pension. So on this next slide, then, we're just going to talk around some of these unique benefits. So what you've all got available to you as employees of the local government is the salary sacrifice shared cost AVC. Now, you pay into your AVC directly from your salary, and that money goes into your AVC pot, which is this extra pot of money that sits alongside your main local government pension. Now, you've got complete flexibility to vary your contributions, so you can increase or decrease as often as you like, with a minimum contribution being just £2 a month. So if ever there's a period you needed some more disposable income, you can just drop those contributions right down if you need to. And the idea is to build this pot of money to as larger amount as possible, and this then allows the ability for all of these options by firstly increasing your wealth in retirement, as quite simply you're now going to have more money waiting for you when you retire. It can also bring down the age in which you want to retire. And what ties into both of these, and really importantly with the shared cost AVC, you've got the ability to take it all back in its entirety as a tax-free lump sum at the point of retirement. And even more importantly, you do this without taking a penny off that valuable main local government pension. So it's really important, and it's a completely unique benefit to members of local government. So let's look then at how the AVC actually works and what makes this such a tax efficient way of saving money to give you all of these options. What's different and unique about the AVC arrangement your employer is able to provide you is any savings that you make are not only benefiting from tax relief, but by contributing to an AVC on a shared cost basis, you're also making savings on national insurance contributions too. So you're actually getting a double tax break. And then, as mentioned, you've got that potential to take your whole AVC pot all back as tax-free cash when you take it at the same time as your main scheme pension. As we mentioned, you've got that flexibility to increase, decrease, and the maximum being roughly 60 to 65% of your gross monthly salary you can pay in, that minimum being just £2 a month. And that's really important. So if you do need some disposable income, you can drop it right down. And if you're in a position that you might have money sat in savings and you want to get that huge uplift on those savings, you could put it into your AVC and maybe maximize your contributions just for 1 month and then just lower it back down to a more regular affordable amount. So make sure you always use that flexibility to your advantage. So let's see then what it actually costs you from your salary to pay an amount into a shared cost AVC. So we'll have a look at an example. Well, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, it means you pay tax at 20% and national insurance at 12%. So if you wanted to save £250 a month into AVCs, it's only going to cost you £170.12 from your take-home pay to do it. So if you just look at those numbers on the screen for a moment, the day you hand over £170, it instantly turns into £250 thanks to that double tax break. And it's going to keep on doing that for you every single month that you're employed in local government and able to take advantage of this. And by the way, if you're fortunate enough to take further advantage and put more into your AVC, then that saving becomes even bigger, as the larger the amount you pay in, the larger that saving becomes. Now, everyone is aware at the moment of making your money work as hard as possible for you. And this is what your employer has set up for you. That ability to save money from your salary, allowing you to save on tax and national insurance on your contributions. So this really is an amazing opportunity you're in that unique position of having. Now, that actually amounts to a 46.95% uplift on your savings as soon as that money goes into the AVC. And if you're a 40% taxpayer, well, then the savings are even greater still, with an uplift of over 70%. Now, for those of you currently putting money into a savings account or a cash ISA, just have a think on what your current returns on that will look like. So maybe 2%, possibly 3%. With the AVC, if you're a 20% taxpayer, you're getting an initial uplift of over 46.5%. All thanks to those huge tax and national insurance savings you make as soon as that contribution goes into the AVC arrangement. So instantly over a 46.5% yield on your money. Now, I appreciate with the AVC, it is a pension arrangement, so you won't be able to access the money until you're over the minimum retirement age, which is currently age 55. And this is due to increase to the age of 57 in 2028. So now we know the earliest age you can access your AVC, you can look at the ways of how you want to access this pot of money you've made with these huge savings on. So you could take it at the same time as your main local government pension, which it has to be said the majority of people do tend to do. And I'll come on to the reasons why shortly. But firstly, look, if you want to take the AVC on its own, so possibly taking it earlier than your main local government pension, we're going to take a look at that now. So as mentioned, then this AVC pot of money sits alongside your main local government pension. But if you do want to access it on its own, then you effectively have to break it away from that local government pension scheme. And you'd have the option to transfer the money into a drawdown plan. You could also choose to purchase an annuity, or you could put it into a personal pension where you would use UF+. And I'll go into a bit more detail on all of these and how they could work for you. Now, going down one of these routes can be appealing for people who might want to leave work, live off their AVC and defer taking that main local government pension for as long as possible. As remember, as mentioned, the earlier you take that main local government pension, the bigger the actuarial reductions are going to be. So firstly then, if you were to take the drawdown option, for example, this would allow you to take up to 25% of the AVC as tax-free cash. The remaining amount would then remain invested and hopefully continue growing. And then as and when you draw down on the rest of that money, it would be taxed accordingly with any other income that you have. Now, as mentioned, that money remains invested, which means it can rise and fall. And this option does offer flexibility in that as and when you need that money, you can draw on it. So be that each month if you wanted to draw on it, maybe once a year, whatever works for you. And obviously, until you need to access the remaining amount of money, it remains invested and hopefully continues growing for you. So as mentioned then, whatever you've built up, if you're going down that drawdown route, you can take up to 25% tax-free. The rest would remain invested in that drawdown product. And as we said, that money remains invested. And as with all investments, it can go down as well as up. But you'd be hoping for some investment growth, which would mean that as that time passes between when you draw on that money, it'll hopefully be growing for you. And essentially, you can stagger over what length of time you want that money to last you by how much and how often you decide to draw on that money. So you'd have that flexibility in withdrawing as much as you want as and when you need it. Now, another option you have then when taking the AVC by itself is using it to purchase an annuity. So your AVC would move over to an annuity provider of which you can choose. So essentially, you can go shopping for the best deal out there, just as you would if you were buying car insurance, for example. And there may even be some comparison sites out there for this. And similarly to that drawdown option, you can take up to 25% tax-free, but that remaining amount would provide you with an income for life. And there would be various options such as, do you want inflation-linked income? Do you want partner-protected benefits? And obviously, the greater the annuity benefits that you ask for, typically, the more it's then going to cost. Now, there are other factors such as if you're in poor health, for example, then that annuity provider knows they may not pay you that guaranteed income for quite so long. So you may find it could become cheaper. And as mentioned, there are various providers all competing for your business. So you can get quotes and compare the best available deals. And once this is then established, it then can't be changed. So again, whatever's in that pot you've built up, then you could take up to 25% tax-free. The rest, or perhaps all of it, if you didn't want to take any tax-free, would then purchase an annuity from that annuity provider, and you would then get that guaranteed income for life. So for many people, this offers that level of stability and security that they might be looking for. And finally, another way of taking that AVC on its own would be by moving that pot of money into what's called UF+, which stands for Uncrystallised Fund Pension Lump Sum. And unlike the other options we've spoken about, you're not taking up to 25% or any amount tax-free up front. So this is essentially putting that pot of money into a pension product where it's almost like being put on a shelf. And as and when you need a lump sum, you would take it. And each time you take a bite out of that pot, 25% will then always be tax-free each time you do it. And the rest would be taxed accordingly, depending on any other income you receive at that time. So the remaining 75% would be taxable each time. Now, remember, you've got something called the standard personal allowance, which is £12,570, which is the amount everyone can earn before they start paying tax. So some of that remaining 75%, or possibly all of that remaining taxable amount, could actually be tax-free if it falls under that personal allowance. If you'd maybe left work and had no other form of income, so people will be particular about how much they take each year, as if you've got no other forms of income, this can still be really tax efficient. This can be particularly useful if you did want to stop work, live off your AVC and defer taking your main local government pension for a period of time, so it has less of those reductions, and it still has the means of then taking your AVC AVC pot completely tax-free. So this is a simple way of accessing your funds, and it's ideal for smaller pots, as with smaller pots, you're never more likely to have it falling under that personal allowance figure and therefore have that ability for extra tax relief. So unlike those other options, then, as we've said, you can't take up to 25% tax-free of the total pot up front, but each time you take a lump sum from that pot, you will get 25% tax-free of the amount you take, and the other 75%, dependent on other income, would then be taxed accordingly. So, for example, each time you took a £4,000 lump sum from it, you would get £1,000 tax-free automatically, and the rest, dependent on any other income, may then be taxed. So you can take as much as you need as and when you want it. So I'd just like to bring this to life for you then by introducing you to Sarah. So this is Sarah, who wants to retire 3 years earlier than a normal retirement age of 67, and so wants to go at the age of 64. Now she wants to live off her AVC and not access her local government pension until the age of 67, and therefore avoid those heavy actuarial reductions. So essentially finish work, live off her AVC pot until she's then ready to access her main local government and state pension. Now, we've made an assumption in this example here that Sarah's managed to build up a fairly sizable pot of money in her AVC amounting to £48,000. And the reason we've used this assumption will become clear in a moment, but £48,000 is a very attainable figure for Sarah. If she was making a monthly £250 AVC contribution for around 13 years, it would mean that Sarah, in all likelihood, would have built up an AVC pot in and around that £48,000 figure. Now, in order to do what Sarah's going to do here, then, she has to move that money away from the local government pension. So in this case, she unlinks the two pots by transferring her AVC, and she decides to transfer a shared cost AVC over to a personal pension. So Sarah gets to the age of 64 then, and she stops work. She leaves her main local government pension where it is, and she defers taking it until the age of 67 to avoid the actuarial reductions. And she transfers her AVC into that personal pension. This is where Sarah gets clever about how she accesses the money, and where it's a bit clearer as to why Sarah saved £48,000 into her AVC. Now, essentially what Sarah does is she withdraws £16,000 in the first year of leaving work at age 64. Now, when Sarah takes that £16,000 withdrawal from her personal pension, 25% of it is tax-free. So £4,000 in Sarah's case is tax-free. Now, remember, as we mentioned, you can earn a certain amount of money each year before you start paying tax. It's that personal allowance, and this tax year is typically £12,570 the UK government allow you to earn before you're due to start paying any tax. So once Sarah's taken £4,000 of that £16,000 withdrawal tax-free, it leaves her with £12,000 of her withdrawal that she may have to pay tax on. But in Sarah's case, she's not in receipt of any other forms of income, and so that £12,000 can also be taken tax-free retrospectively. Now, Sarah does this exact same thing for each of the 3 years at age 64, 65 and 66, where she takes her £16,000 each year with £4,000 tax-free automatically, and the other £12,000 falling under the personal allowance. So she can retrospectively claim the tax back she pays on that as well. So her AVC pot then has allowed her to retire 3 years early at age 64 by bridging that gap between leaving work and then accessing her main local government and state pension, taking the whole pot tax-free. So essentially, the bigger your AVC pot, the earlier you can retire and bridge that gap between leaving work and then accessing your main local government pension further down the line, and therefore reduce or eliminate those actuarial reductions that would have been applied to a pension. So we've covered then all of these options when it comes to taking the AVC on its own and breaking it away from the local government pension scheme. So drawdown or an annuity or F plus. So now if we look then at taking your AVC at the same time as your main scheme pension, well, firstly, you'll still have all of the options that we've discussed there by transferring your AVC into external pension-based products, but you'd also have the additional option at this point of putting your AVC into your main local government pension and increasing the benefits you're due to receive from that local government pension. But of course, the option that the vast majority of people will tend to do when taking their AVC at the same time as their main scheme pension is when you take your AVC at the same time as that main local government pension, you've got the ability to take it all back in one go as a tax-free lump sum. Now, this is a huge deal for you, as you are the only public sector scheme that allows you to take the whole AVC all back as tax-free cash. So other public sector schemes such as the teachers or NHS pension scheme members, they don't have this option. You, being a member of the local government pension scheme, have got this fantastic, unique opportunity where you can build up this pot of money, get these huge tax and national insurance savings each month, and then you can take it back as a tax-free cash lump sum, and it'll have no impact to your valuable index-linked local government pension. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is the most popular way people tend to want to access their benefits, as it's generally the most tax efficient way to use this pot of money. So get all of these huge tax and national insurance savings each month, and then that ability to get the whole amount back in one go, completely tax free. Now, if you think back to that slide earlier where the day you hand over £170, it turns into £250 with that double tax break, well, you can see just what a tax efficient savings vehicle this is when you've then got that ability to get it all back again, completely tax free at the point of retirement with your main pension. So until people really look at this stuff, then people can often think, well, I'd like to retire earlier than my normal retirement age, but they've got no idea if they can really afford to do so. So now you're aware that your local government standard retirement age is linked to whatever your state pension age. So again, for the majority of people, you're looking at age 66, 67 or 68. So this means if you're going even a couple of years early, you're going to be hit with these big reductions on that local government pension. So having looked at all of this, this is where you can then use the shared cost AVC to take control and give yourself the ability to make these huge tax and national insurance savings, which will then give you that ability to look at retiring earlier than that normal retirement age. This is all about making your money work as hard as possible for you, being as tax efficient as you can, and then building up this pot of money that's going to give you all of these options for retirement. And remember, you don't need to decide on how you want to use this extra pot of money that you've built up until you decide to access it in your retirement. So there's no need to commit to making a decision now, as you'll do that at retirement. Often the most important thing for people is to start making these huge savings from the tax man each month, start building that pot of money that's then going to give you these options. As mentioned, the majority of people will take it all tax-free in one go at the same time as their main scheme pension by getting that huge double tax break each month paying in, and then get the whole pot completely tax-free in one go at the point of retirement. But as we've seen, you do have these other options if you're one of those people that wants to break the AVC away from local government and access it earlier than you take your main local government pension. So we've talked about various examples and figures today. Well, please do check out our Knowledge Hub on our website. So we've got a really useful calculator tool available there, and that allows you to find out how much an AVC contribution can cost you from your take-home pay, and you can try and give you an idea as to how much your AVC could then be worth in retirement. So I'd really recommend just spending a minute or two on that calculator, punch in any numbers that you're thinking of paying, and it'll show you just how much you can save through this double tax break. And that's a great way to get an indication of just how much money you can save and really make this work for you. As mentioned, people might have money sat in a savings account, probably doing absolutely nothing at the moment. So you can, again, indirectly get that into your AVC through your salary, even just for 1 or 2 months, by maximising those contributions. You're then going to get that huge uplift on your money, and then you can simply lower it back down once you've burned off whatever you want to burn off from savings. So again, just think if you had £2,000, for example, sat in the bank that you didn't need to access, what's that going to make you in interest sat in the bank? Because indirectly getting that into your AVC in even a one-off payment, you're instantly going to get that huge yield of almost 47% if you're a basic rate taxpayer. And you could then all get that back again, completely tax-free at the point of retirement. So this is all about being as smart with your money as you can be and making the most of these unique employee opportunities. So if you are looking to set up a shared cost AVC, then the first steps to head to our website, avcwise.co.uk, log into your account, and on the home page, just scroll to the bottom of the page. You'll see the application buttons. Click on the new application button. You'll then just need to enter your details and select the fund or funds that you want to invest in. Now, within that application, you've got the opportunity to download the fund guide. This will give you details about all your available fund choices, where you can read through this and come to a decision as to where you'd like to invest your AVC contributions. You might even see in that fund guide that your employer has chosen a default fund for you, and you'll see on the application form that box asking for your fund choice will already be filled in for you with that default fund. And remember, as mentioned earlier, that flexibility. So if you do just want to set this up with your default fund or a minimal risk cash fund or something just to get those initial huge savings, remember you can always revisit this and change your fund choice as often as you like. Once you submit that application, it goes off to your employer for them to do their checks on, and it would then start from your next available payroll. On the basis that it's accepted by your employer, your AVC is then set up with your AVC fund provider. So for the majority of you, that would be the Prudential or Standard Life, or it could be Legal and General or Clerical Medical. If you're already paying into a shared cost AVC and you want to amend the contribution amount, again, head to avcwise.co.uk. You just click on the My Shared Cost AVC page, hit the amend button and simply enter that new desired amount that you're looking to pay in. Now, whether you're setting this up as a new application or amending your existing contributions, either way, you do need to allow time for your payrolls to authorise and process this. I do keep drumming on about the flexibility, but whatever you set it up at or increase it to, you're not locked into that amount. So you can get it done, get those huge savings, and then if you need to lower it or make any changes in the future, you can do so. We appreciate some people may need some extra help when it comes to setting up an AVC. So you've got the opportunity of booking a one-to-one meeting with us, might be with myself or one of my colleagues here at AVC Wise. These meetings last up to 20 minutes, take place on Microsoft Teams, and we give you a helping hand to set up your shared cost AVC. This option is really only available if you are ready to do so at this moment in time. If you're not looking to do this immediately, just come back at a future point. Some considerations is that for us to be able to help you, please ensure you've got access to a local government projection to your desired retirement age. If you have an AVC already in place, please get an up-to-date valuation of what your AVC part is currently worth, and we'll also need you to have access to an up-to-date payslip. As you can see at the bottom of that slide, we're not providing any financial advice or investment advice at the meeting, but we can give you factual information and help you on your way to applying for the shared cost AVC. But remember, the quickest and easiest way to establish your AVC is just to head to our website. It does only take a few minutes, but if you did need some extra support, then by all means book in a one-to-one. If you haven't already done so, if you have any questions from today, if you want to submit those now into the Q&A box, as we will be coming to those in the next couple of minutes before we finish. Now, one question we are often asked then is what is the maximum I'm allowed to pay in each month? As you might be close to retirement and want to utilise that tax-free cash that you're allowed, or you might have money sat in the bank and want to indirectly get that into your AVC to give you those huge savings instantly that would otherwise be sat there in the bank. So if you're submitting a new application, right under the box at the top of that application form, where it asks you to enter the monthly amount you wish to pay, you'll see it says, what is my maximum underneath? Just click on that, enter your salary, hours and age, and it'll tell you the maximum amount you can pay in each month. Similarly, if you're amending the current amount that you already pay, once you click the amend button, you'll see that what is my maximum. So again, click on that, it'll tell you the maximum you're allowed to pay in each month. Another point to consider is the amount that you put on your application form is always the gross figure. So for example, if £250 goes into your AVC, but from your take-home pay, it's only costing you 170 because of that double tax break, it's that gross 250 that you put on the application form. Just before I open these questions up then, if you all go to the top of that Q&A box there and have a quick look, you'll see I've put a link to the AVC Wise landing page. So I'd recommend that you all click on that link now and get that saved somewhere if you can. That will take you directly through to where you can set up your AVCs, where you can amend your AVCs if you currently pay them. And also importantly, there's a direct link there once you click on that that takes you through to that important calculator tool that I'd mentioned. So at this stage then, I'm just going to go across to check if there are any questions that have come through. Let's have a look. Gary has asked a question. Can you stop contributions altogether and can you then rejoin at a later date? So the simple answer to that, Gary, is yes, you can. You can completely stop your AVCs if ever you need to. What I would say is in that scenario is if you are then looking to restart it, you would then need to complete a new application and essentially get it set up from new again. What a lot of people will do if they're in a position where they maybe can't afford to pay into their AVCs for a period of time is remember you've got that ability to drop it right down to £2 a month. So that will keep your AVC alive in the background. And then when you are in a position to pay in again, you simply just hit the amend button as opposed to having to do a brand new application. But technically, yes, if you do want to completely stop and then reset it up again, you can do that. Let's have a look. Who do we contact if there are issues with the Prudential AVCs? Is it the PRU or AVC, i.e. delays in payments into the account? Yeah, so if your AVCs are with Prudential, I'm aware there might be a bit of a lag at the moment. If you sign into the My PRU account, there might be a bit of a delay in showing your AVC contribution that's gone in there. So that would be directly with the Prudential. Your money is always going directly to the provider. Now, what I would say on that is the Prudential will always backdate your AVC contribution to the day your payroll has sent it over to them. So just rest assured, even if there is a delay of you logging into the My PRU and it's showing your contribution there, the Prudential will always backdate to the exact day your payroll has sent that money over to them. So there should be reassurance for you there. Let's have a look. So Simon has asked, I'm leaving my local government role at the end of May and I have had an AVC for about a year. What do I need to do to take it as a lump sum? So Simon, if in May, when you leave local government, if that's the point you're taking your main local government pension, well, then that's the point. You potentially just take your whole AVC as a tax-free lump sum at that point as part of your local government benefits. If you're not accessing your local government pension at that time, as we've mentioned, if you want to get your hands on your AVC, you can potentially do so earlier than accessing that local government pension by looking at those options where you can access the AVC on its own, as we mentioned. But if you are getting your main local government pension scheme pension at that point, then you've then got that ability to just get it back in its entirety, all as a tax-free lump sum. Let's have a look. I don't believe that we have any other questions through there at the moment. So there's a couple of reminders of the ways to contact us on screen there. So again, many thanks for your attendance today, everyone. I hope this has highlighted what a great opportunity you have here. Please go on that calculator and have a look at how those savings can really stack up for you and can really change your retirement. I'd also mention in that Q&A box there, everyone, you will see my email address I've put at the very top, barry.richards@avcwise.co.uk. Now, a few people have joined us just after the webinar started today. So I mentioned anybody who has come on using that personal email address, such as a Hotmail or a Gmail, or anyone who has come on anonymously as a guest today, if you could please just drop me a quick email confirming your attendance. I will then make sure you are copied into an email that goes out to everybody with some important links on. So if you've come on anonymously today or you've come on using a personal email, please do drop me an email just confirming your attendance today. So let's have a look. Anonymous, there's a couple of questions have come through just before we close, so I'm aware of the time, but we'll see if we can quickly get through these. Who do we speak to about taking AVCs, Pru or the local government? Well, you're paying into your AVCs directly from your payroll there with local government. So when it comes to the point that you're looking to get your AVC maybe as a tax-free lump sum, well, your payroll will be in contact with you about how you want to receive those benefits. And that would be the point you would instruct them that you want it as a tax-free lump sum. Your payroll would then liaise with your provider and get the money arranged accordingly for you. Let's have a look. So Paul has asked, I didn't really follow the part about paying in £2,000 from a saving account. Surely there's no tax break involved. Okay, Paul, so the example we talked about there is, well, let's imagine you've got £2,000 sat in a bank and you're going to retire in a few years' time. Well, if you didn't need to touch that £2,000 in a bank, over the next few years, that £2,000 might not be earning you much in the way of interest. What you've got the ability to do is put that £2,000, if it's when you hit the maximum amount, if that's an amount you're allowed to put in 1 month, for example, well, for 1 month, you could indirectly put that into your AVC via your salary. You're then going to get those huge tax and national insurance savings. So instantly, that £2,000 will have got you a huge return thanks to that double tax break. And then a few years later, when you're accessing your AVC, you're then potentially getting it all back again tax free. So it's just to highlight the point, really, that if you've got savings and it's important you don't need to access them, well, you've got that ability to indirectly put them into your AVC, even just as a one-off lump sum style payment by maximising a contribution, maybe just for 1 or 2 months, lowering it back down to a more regular affordable amount once you've indirectly got in from the bank what you want to. So again, have a look on that calculator on our website, put in an amount, even if you see what your maximum is or what you might be able to do as a large one-off type payment, look at how much that will instantly make you and then get back all potentially tax-free at the point of retirement. Another question has come through. I'm aware of the time, people, but let's see. Joe has asked the question, is there a maximum amount I can have in an AVC pot? Well, there isn't technically a maximum you can build it up to, Joe. There isn't. You'll always only be able to pay into it through your local government salary, and there's always a maximum amount you're allowed to pay in each month. Again, you can see that maximum contribution calculator when you're doing your application or you're doing an amendment where it says, what is my maximum? It'll tell you what that maximum amount is. Now, there is a maximum you are allowed to take back as tax-free cash, and that was linked to something known as the lifetime allowance, which in the latest government announcement has now any tax penalties have been removed, but there's a proportion of that lifetime allowance you're allowed as tax-free cash. Now, without getting too technical, the maximum tax-free cash allowed linked to a local government pension is £268,275, which works out at 25% of what was called the lifetime allowance. So it'd be a nice problem to have if anybody is getting anywhere near the amount of £268,275 in an AVC, but technically that's the most tax-free cash you could take in line with your local government AVC. Paul has asked, what is the mechanism for paying savings in indirectly from salary? Yeah, so quite simply, Paul, when your AVC is up and running, it will be coming out of your payslip each month. So you would see your AVC contribution on that payslip. So what you can't do is you can't just send in a check and say, I'd like this money to go into an AVC. It has to come out of that salary. So as mentioned, that example, if you had £2,000 you wanted to put into your AVC, well, then you could check what the maximum you're allowed to pay is through your salary. You could put in a certain amount. So if you're in a position where in 1 month you're allowed to put in 2,000, you could do that for 1 month, live off those savings for that 1 month, and then drop it back down once you've got that in to a more regular, affordable amount. Because remember, what you can't do, and it would be great if you could, is just send in a check, get a huge tax relief on it, and the money's in there. It has to come through that salary. So it's an indirect way of getting money from savings into your AVC, is just by living off those savings and then maximizing your contributions for a period of time to get that money in. I believe that looks like all of the questions have been answered. Hopefully that has answered all of those okay for you. So as I mentioned, please go on that calculator and have a quick look at the amount you can save through that double tax break. Make sure you all take full advantage of this. We've looked at various examples and figures. Whatever you can afford to do, make sure you do something to get those huge savings and then reach those retirement goals. So finally, have a great remainder of the day, everyone, and a great long weekend. Thanks a lot. All the best. Bye now.